What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PowerUp podcast with your host, Nathan Shields, aka Osiren. Remember to check us out at www.powerupfighters.com for previous podcast entries and various little tidbits of news about the site. Subscribe on the site to the RSS feed and this podcast in iTunes, if you will. I would appreciate it. As always, I would. Today, my guest is Mario Klinge from Indianapolis, Indiana, also known as Riot Guard. And talking with Mario was really fun because he has this great energy about himself. You feel like he's dissected all of the strategies that you could think of in especially Third Strike. We go in depth with Third Strike, and it was fun because I enjoy Third Strike. I'm afraid, and Mario even says that the game will probably fade away, which makes me sad because I think it is a very excellent game. So we do a lot of Third Strike strategy. We talk a little bit about how Mario has, how Street Fighter 4 has grown on Mario, and a lot about his history. We have a nice little conversation about Karate Champ and how it was the beginnings of footsies. So that was pretty interesting. I hope you guys enjoy listening to Mario as much as I enjoyed talking with him, and I will catch you all later.
Hey, my name is Mario Klinge. I post on SRK as Riot Guard. That's also the name I play in tournaments as. Pretty much play a little everything, every genre of game, but I'm really into fighting games.
Something I don't always remember to ask people is where they got their handles from. So where did Riot Guard come from?
Actually, that just out of nowhere. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, and I'll just post something kind of random, but not too random. And I didn't really think I was going to be on the forums a lot or use an alias. And I actually just got on SRK to find other players and find other communities and tournaments I could play at. So there wasn't really a lot of thought behind it, but I'm pretty happy with it, I guess. It kind of stuck. So
cool. Awesome. So you said you play a lot of games, including fighters. What are some of those other games that define you as a gamer?
I like FPS games a lot. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty 4 recently. I used to play Counter-Strike all the time back when it was popular. And, a lot of Left 4 Dead, too.
Cool. So, have you ever been to any tournaments for that kind of stuff? Or is it basically...
yeah, actually, my first FPS tournament, I think, was back when Unreal Tournament was big. And it was just a small tournament. And I think it was 5-on-5, and we happened to win, down to the wire. So that was kind of my first introduction to LAN parties and online FPSs. I mean, I grew up playing Doom and Wolfenstein and stuff like that. So
very cool. So what are some of your favorite fighting games and why?
Well, my favorite fighting game would be Third Strike. I have a couple others, but Third Strike's definitely the one that stands out the most for me. I think it just suits my style. I feel like I like Marvel, but for me it's a little too fast. Turbo is kind of a little bit too fast too. Then, some games like Tekken, they just kind of feel a little too slow for me. But I mean, they're all very deep and methodical in their own right. But for me, Third Strike it just fits my style of play perfectly.
Okay, and that's more of a kind of slow and steady, but you can get in there when you need to get in there.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, very different from Marvel. Marvel is pretty much just all aggression.
It's just speed, the definition of speed right there.
Definitely. And then, Super Turbo, I don't know. I mean, it can be a little... I would think that would kind of be your kind of game, but what turns you off to Super Turbo as far as favorite game?
I don't... Maybe... That's a good question because, I mean, it does play kind of at the same speed as Third Strike, but I don't know. I think that I had played Street Fighter 2 for so long that I don't know, maybe I got kind of burnt out on it. So when 3 came out, I just kind of fell in love with that and just kind of quit playing a lot of other fighters. But I mean, I still play casuals in HDR and stuff, and I enjoy it. But I don't know. I think I like the combo system and I like the parry system in Third Strike, which kind of pulls me towards that a little more.
That makes sense, definitely. So in Third Strike, you've never really had a problem with the way that there are only so many characters that are really top tier, and the
Hmm.
roster itself is pretty small. But you've generally found yourself to be pretty, I don't know, satiated by that whole setup.
Yeah, well, I started playing at 99 off and on
Mm-hmm.
over the years when it came out, and then there's just so much that wasn't known about the game then. And the tiers have changed not a whole lot over the years, a little bit.
Mm.
Yun was considered top tier for a really long time, and then Chun just a little bit behind, and then the past couple of years it's all Chun.
Mm.
But for me, I'm not too bothered by playing a good Chun Li player because I play Urian. Urian, I mean, he definitely is. It's a little bit of an uphill battle
Mm.
against Chun, but he has much worse matchups in my opinion. Like him versus Makoto, I mean, that's my worst nightmare
Mm.
is a Makoto. I'd much rather play a good Chun than I would a good Makoto.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So,
Well, we will definitely get into some Urian
okay.
strategy later. Let's see here what else we can do from the introduction section. I don't know. Is Third Strike pretty much the only game that you really practice anymore, or have you gotten it all into like Street Fighter 4, the Blaze Blue, anything new like that?
Well, I tried getting into Blaze Blue. Kind of struggle with it a little bit.
Hmm.
I do enjoy it, but I have the habit of liking characters that are often terrible.
Ah,
And
I feel your
Tager
pain.
is like I was like, oh, he's cool because I play Mr. Heart and H&K, and they're both kind of sluggish but really powerful characters.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, he's really cool. And then I played a good V13. And I'm like, oh, this is this is a little frustrating. But
Yeah.
and then an Arakun, and it was just like, it's just he just has so much going against them that you really can never. What I really like about a fighting game is when it can be a chess match.
Right.
Felt like there, like I was all, starting, you know, um, way behind,
Mm-hmm.
the other player, and I was just playing catch up just to get on a level ground,
Right.
and that's how I felt playing Tager. And so he's kind of the character that stood out for me in that game. And then when I kind of saw, all of his weaknesses, I kind of shied away from BB and started focusing on Street Fighter 4.
Okay. So what's up in Street Fighter 4 for you?
The thing is, first I really didn't like it. Like I just thought it was kind of a mediocre,
Hmm.
but it's grown on me, and I've kind of seen some depth in it, and it's I do like the pacing. It's not as fast as Third Strike, but I do like the pacing, and I like to play throw characters too. So and you got Zangief, and he's actually top tier. You got a throw character that's top tier, which is
Right.
so rare in fighting games. So going from Tager to getting to play Zangief and actually being able to have a good set of tools to work with is drawing me into it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So between Street Fighter 4 and Third Strike, or well, the rivalry between them, I guess. What do you think is going to happen with Third Strike? Is it going to die off within the community, or could some sort of, I don't know, downloadable re-release reinvigorate it? What do you feel is going to happen with that game?
I think in reality it's gonna die off
Hmm.
because it I mean there are communities where people play online like GGPO and 2DF.
Right.
It would reinvigorate it a little bit, I think, if it was re-released on PS3 or 360. But I think that I do think that some of the balance issues and the level of depth it takes to kind of get used to the parry system and the character matchups that it's not a very easy game to jump into.
Hmm.
I kind of it's been out so long that I don't see a lot of people uh, getting into it.
I
There'll
gotcha.
always be people that still play it. I mean, I'll always play it. Like Turbo players will always play Turbo.
Right.
It's definitely it can't. It's definitely very much in the shadow of four.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that works. It's just, it's kind of been modernized now. Everything, it's up to date, it's new, it's bringing in all these new people. That's just kind of the way the ball bounces, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And that's all right, though. So was Third Strike your first game, your first fighting game that you seriously got into?
Well, my my first fighting game was Karate Champ back in like 85 or 86.
Excellent.
So, I mean, I didn't really compete because I was like 6 and my parents had to hold me up to the game. People didn't compete in fighting games. They competed in like Pac-Man and stuff for high schools. So, but I fell in love with that game and what was behind it and what the designers were intending for it. And I just completely understand what you were supposed to get out of it. And to me, it was great. And pretty much, I mean, I've had favorite fighting games since then. Like from there, there's another one that was called, I think, Air Gung Fu that was really old school too. And then Street Fighter 1, I really got into that, but still too young to kind of get into it seriously. And then Street Fighter 2 is the one I started getting into seriously.
Okay, cool. Now, back when you started playing Karate Champ, what was it that you did see in the design that, like, you saw you said you saw what those designers were going for? What do you think that they were going for?
Well, I think that they were kind of going for a simulation experience with that, it being like it focuses on karate, and it was one of the few games that had a large variety of moves. Like you take Super Mario that came out during, Super Mario Brothers came out kind of during the same time period, and you can jump and run, and that's it. Pick up mushrooms and flowers and shoot fireballs. But in this game, I can't remember how many moves you had, but you had over 12 moves, and you were combating someone else, and there was already a glimmer of zoning going on in this game, and I just thought that was really neat that it was me against another person. So that's kind of what stood out for me on that.
Very cool. I unfortunately haven't yet to play Karate Champ, but I'm going to have to see if I can find it somewhere.
It'll be kind of hard to go back to, and it's pretty antiquated.
Well, I'm sure, but I'd like to see some of those glimmers myself that you talk about. I think that would be pretty cool to kind of see where the origins of footsies and things like that.
Well, it had bonus stages too, which is pretty
excellent.
Yeah, you could like punch a bull in the face when it runs at you. You had to break bottles and vases and stuff when they threw them at you. So it was kind of, I think that's probably where Street Fighter 1 got its bonus stage from, where you'd chop the blocks.
Yeah, probably.
You had to time it right. So
probably. Well, all right. Let's talk about. I don't know. We can mix around the list a little bit, but let's talk about Urian's strategy. I'm sure that people who know of you in Third Strike are excited about knowing some of those things. So we'll dive right in.
Okay.
Let's see here. Now, do you play Urian exclusively, or will you counterpick if you feel you have to?
Oh, I will definitely counterpick. Occasionally I don't, depending on the opponent. But Urian, even though he's upper mid-tier and he's got a strong set of tools, the Aegis, he has some of the worst matchups in the game. Akuma's tough for him, Makoto, Chun-Li, Dudley. And tourneys now, I mean, you'll see a lot more of the top tiers than the way it was in the past. So I'll run into Dudleys and Chun-Li's and Makoto's very often. So depending on the skill of the opponent, if it's a good Makoto, sometimes I'll counterpick with Ken or Dudley.
Okay. I've also heard that Urian has really bad matchups against the twins.
Yeah, he does. See, the thing with Urian is that really kills him is he has almost no wake-up game. He only has an EX Aegis wake-up and headbutt. And the twins are so short, they're ducking, you're not going to hit them. Sometimes even standing, you're going to go right over them, unless you combo into the headbutt. And so his wake-up game is it's probably one of the worst in the game.
Gotcha.
So basically, against a really good opponent or a top player, you definitely don't want to get knocked down because he'll just mix you up.
Okay. So how do you, when you're on the defense, or even when you're on the attack, how are you avoiding those knockdown opportunities? What are you doing to outzone and outthink your opponent?
Well, sometimes I'll do like an option select parry and then go into a throw. Sometimes I'll wake up throw, but I try not to do. I try not to waste any meter with an EX headbutt. So I kind of just try to be patient and wait to see them maybe try to do an overhead universal, parry, and then go into his bread and butter combos. So it's kind of, I mean, the way I've got to play Urian is hyper aggressive to make them nervous about coming in and putting me on the ground and then going in their own mix-ups.
Okay. Are there any like hyper defensive Urians that you've seen videos of that have been successful?
Uh, not really. I've seen some that Urian has a very good poke game. He's got a lot of reach in his normals.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of Urians just do footsies until they can build up Aegis and then get aggressive. But usually, once you have a meter, it's time to kind of rush your opponent in the corner and make use of the Aegis.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I kind of play defensive until I start getting some meter, and then I'll pick up the pace.
Okay. So when you're rushing your opponent down, what are some of the safest ways to rush down with Urian?
Um, I try to poke them and kind of nudge them slowly into the corner. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what you would really like is for them to go in the air and get hit by an air sphere, because then there's a good 50% life you can take with just juggles. But a good
Okay.
player will air parry and come down and punish you for it. But
Mm.
I kind of try to shoulder tackle, get them semi close to the corner, carrying, cancel that into a Aegis maybe, and then go in a mix up, maybe dash into a throw, dash into a sweep. Just kind of slowly get them into the corner, and then with Urian, you always want to cancel into the Aegis, like cancel a sphere into the Aegis,
Mm-hmm.
or cancel a tackle in the Aegis, because it makes it harder to parry. If you just throw out an Aegis, sometimes they can just dash through it before it materializes.
Oh,
So
I
you
see.
always want to cancel something into the Aegis if you can.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about trying to poke and slowly move the opponent into the corner, with how many bad matchups Urian has, are these bad matchups because of, obviously he has a good poke game, so what about the matchups is bad, and how will they turn the tables on you when you're trying to build your aggression up?
Well, like for example against Makoto, it's Urian's normals. I mean, they're kind of slow,
Mm-hmm.
and she's so fast. Her dash is so fast that she can actually dash in between some of those normals and punish you,
I see.
which is why I think that's his hardest matchup. But against maybe a good Chun-Li's not quite as quick. And even though she has a really good poke game, Urian has pretty good reach, and you can parry and fill them out, and parry and poke, and if they're not as good at you as poking, then you can build up the meter. You can really do the damage on a Chun. And Dudley, the thing about Dudley is he's got to get in close to do a lot of his damage too.
Mm-hmm.
Urian wants to be close to land that elbow,
Mm-hmm.
but Dudley's so much faster that he can rush you down before you get an opportunity to land the elbow and then go into a unblockable. So, but
So,
other characters, I mean, Urian holds his own pretty well with.
okay. Run me through some of the bread and butter or advanced combos that Urian has, say off of a hit, air, fireball, or even a hit tackle from wake up if you get lucky.
Well, if you're in the corner and you're able to hit tackle, you go straight into a light Aegis. And the thing about Urian, I would probably say he's maybe the hardest character to learn in the game, is because every character in that game is affected differently by the Aegis. Well, not everyone. I mean, in groups. Like the Shotos may be affected the same. Hugo and Necro may be affected differently because of their hitboxes. So
Hmm.
sometimes they'll bounce off the Aegis in different ways than other characters were. So you can't juggle them. Like Chun-Li, she's an easily juggable character. What you can do is you can say you're in the corner, you can land an elbow, light tackle, light sphere, light tackle, and then chop. And then it's a pretty big combo.
Mm.
And all you had to do was throw out a sphere to continue the juggle. Whereas if I were to try to do that same combo on Urian, it wouldn't work because it just won't work on his hitbox.
Interesting. And that's
So,
why he's one of the more complicated characters to learn.
yeah, and his mid-screen unblockables, some of them don't, a lot of them don't work on every character. So you have to improvise. And the one good thing about fighting Chun is it's fairly easy to land unblockables on her because she has kind of a slow wake up. And she juggles so well, and you can go into conventional mid-screen unblockable. But nowadays, good players, they've gotten to the point where they can parry out of the unblockable and punish you. It's hard to do, but I see it quite a bit in high-level matches, and sometimes I'm able to do it because I've gotten so used to having to parry out of it.
And what's the unblockable?
Well, the mid-screen unblockable is, take Chun-Li, for example. I like to punish her, I guess. So let's say you're a little less than mid-screen, so you're on the left side. You land the elbow, cancel a medium tackle or light tackle into a fierce aegis, go into a fierce tackle. Now here's a tricky part. You have to do a partition. First, you're buffering back as Urien is tackling them into the aegis. So you're already holding diagonally back. As soon as they hit, you dash forward, go immediately back towards diagonally back, then do the headbutt, and that'll take you over. So what you've done is you're breaking up the charge time into short breaks. So instead of charging a second and a half or 2 seconds, you've only charged for a second or less than a second, and then you can go into the aegis. You can kick. The goal is to get over them and push them back into the aegis.
I see.
Because then it can't be blocked.
Huh. I think I can visualize it because I've probably seen it a couple times, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get it. So the charge is actually, it's being saved in one direction, and then you finish it off in another direction? Is that it?
Well, you can do that. On this one, it's you do the charge, and then you're holding that charge, and after you do the dash, so you've broken it up. But the way the game system works is that it'll allow you to go back to it. So and that charge will still remain, and then you can use that charge instead of for another tackle, for instance. You can use it for the headbutt, and then the headbutt will take them over. And on this particular unblockable, once you're on the other side, you dash twice, you do this forward medium kick, and that will push them into the unblockable, and so the reflector will sandwich them in between his kick and his reflector, and the only way out of it's to parry, because it's being detected as 2 hits from being hit on both sides at the same time.
Okay, so the partitioning is part of the setup.
Yes. Some characters you don't have to do that, though. I mean, for example, Urien, you could actually tackle in and then do a knee drop over and dash back in. If you do it fast, you can go into an unblockable there, too.
And that's because of the different hitbox.
Yeah, it's just the way they juggle and they bounce off of it, and the speed they get up. There's various factors involved in how the characters react to it and how they get up. That can leave them prone, and like Makoto has a really slow get up, so she's very easy to do the unblockables on in comparison to a Dudley who gets up really fast, and he bounces off farther away. So you have to do a more difficult unblockable, like dash forward medium punch, and then once you hit him with the medium punch, you tackle under, and then dash back in. So
I see.
it gets pretty complicated on some of them. RX, who is a very, very, probably the best Urien in the world, has got a video series up called Most Wanted, and he does corner unblockables on every character in the game. Some of them 100%, and it's amazing just some of the stuff this guy's come up with. I mean, he's pretty much invented the unblockables for Urien.
Wow. So how do you think that things like that, does the community rely a lot on these individual people who just spend so much time with the game and then come up with these new combos? It's like they were already there, potentially, but I don't know. I've always kind of wondered. It's like apparently Marvel had to evolve to the point where the infinites became a big part of the game. And the way you make Urien sound, it's like Third Strike has had to evolve in order to really reach the potential for these characters. So, how do you think that works?
I just think I think you have some players out there that are just, they're masterful at these games, and that, they put so much time into it, and they share, the communities, so strong that they're able to share little, these little things that the games that maybe even the developers didn't, you know, realize would happen, and they like the carring. It's like Chun-Li. I mean, every good character cars.
Hmm.
That's a huge part of her game. I highly doubt that's something that Capcom wanted in their game. Kara throw. I mean, it's kind of a glitch.
Right.
Like Urian's unblockable is a glitch. They probably didn't realize that you could partition like that, and so
Hmm.
you know, uh, it's it's one of those things where it's unfortunately like Third Strike, it didn't get an update. They had wanted to do an update, but Third Strike was such an expensive game, and it wasn't popular at all for years. I mean, it didn't really
Hmm.
get popular some 3 4 years after it came out, so they lost quite a bit of money on Third Strike, and they were actually planning on coming out with a newer version. I believe it was called Street Fighter 3 Heat. And they
Hmm.
were going to do some revisions to it, but it just wasn't reasonable for them from business perspective to do it.
Right. So the glitches and things like that, is that high level play?
Yes, I
Okay.
mean, especially, I mean, I don't know a lot about Marvel, but I mean, every high level match I see, I mean, these guys are doing these monstrous combos and
Hmm.
resets and reflies and things, and it's just I think when originally it came out, these games, they had no idea that out of a 40, however many people are in that game, it's like 50 characters, that people would be using the same 7 or 8 characters,
Right.
all Marvel characters too. So
Pretty much.
it's just, I think that some games become broken in a way that they're unplayable, and some games become broken in a way that they're still playable and almost in a way more fun.
Hmm. Definitely, I can see that. Even for Marvel, it's like at first when I started getting into it a little bit, I was like, "Well, I've got all these characters. Why can't I play them?" Well, it's because they suck.
Who do you
But
use?
I've kind of went around and around, but I've definitely decided I like Sentinel and Magneto.
Hmm.
So learning Magneto is a project in and of itself. So is
Right.
Sentinel, but I find them both to be very fun to play. And then just I had a podcast with Galleon. I don't think it's been released yet. Well, it might have, but we talk about how to become noteworthy in the scene for something. So like how VDO in Marvel, he'll play lower tier characters.
Right.
Well, I decided, well, I heard that Dalsim can be a kind of a beast in Marvel, so
Uh,
I heard that there was some sort of combo video with him, and there was like a little bit of chatter about him for a little bit. So I figured, well, why not put Dalsim in there in lieu of Storm? Because I really just don't like Storm. I know she's a great
right.
character and everything, but I just don't like her. So
Right.
I'm like, well, who can I replace? I had Spiral on there for a little bit, and I was trapping people with the swords and Sentinel's ground assist, which was pretty fun actually.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I might throw her in there sometimes when I'm feeling antsy. But no, I'd like to get Dalsim in there and see what kind of mark I can make on Marvel, if
There you
any.
go.
But we'll see.
You might be the only Dalsim player in Marvel.
There you go. Sometimes I feel like the only Viper player in Street Fighter 4 too.
Yeah, you know what? I'm surprised there aren't more Viper players, because she's a solid character.
Definitely.
It's just, maybe it's just because of her low stamina or not. But I mean, she's a lot of characters in that game aren't very mobile. They get around the screen very fast, except for obviously like Dalsim and Seth. Blanka's
Mm,
very mobile, but she's
yeah.
very quick.
Yeah.
A lot of the other characters aren't quite that quick. So I'm kind of surprised there aren't more Vipers.
Yeah. I think it's mostly just comes down to learning curve. There's a lot
Yeah.
of really not probably not even as hard as Third Strike with some of the unblockables, but it's still she is the hardest character I think to learn in that game.
Oh, really? It's just, a lot of her stuff is based off like cross ups and hitting them behind
Yeah.
up high. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a certain amount of timing with a lot of her stuff, and that's not to say that there isn't for any other character, but most of her most damaging things are not as easy to pull off as other characters. So she may not be like Yuri and Unblockable trying to learn that kind of stuff, or the Magneto Infinite or anything like that. But as far as Street Fighter 4 goes, she is, I think, the most complex character.
I see.
Which is why I sometimes wish I had played Cammy first. But what can you do? I like who I like. It's how it goes.
Hey, it's what, you gotta enjoy your character. It's hard to be interested in, getting dedicated to getting better with them.
Exactly. Let's move on a little bit to mind games. So what do mind games to you? Are they separate from footsies? Are there mind games in footsies, or are footsies mind games? How do you define mind games?
Whew. Footsie's definitely an aspect of mind games. I think as far as mind games is you're reading your opponent, and it way I see it is, for example, in Third Strike, first 20, 30 seconds of the first round in a tournament match is just filling out your opponent and seeing their pattern. Once you notice their pattern, if I notice that they struggle with getting in close because I'm using footsies, then I will, I'll keep using them. I'll use them in a way that does frustrate them. If I find that they like to, they like to jump a lot, well, I'll find a way to do a lot of anti-airs and go into big damage, or get them to where. One thing with Urian is that a lot of times if you get people towards the corner, they know that Aegis is coming, so they're pressured to get out of that corner. So sometimes the first thing they'll do is jump. Well, the thing is, a lot of times that sphere comes out so fast, and they're so worried about getting hit with the Aegis, they get caught. They get hit with an air sphere, and then you can go straight into to 4 tackles that do 50% damage. So that's like, for example, as a Urian player, I don't know if I would call that too much of a mind game, but it's just kind of I guess it is, but kind of putting them in a position that I want them to be in, making them think I'm going to do something, then actually do something else. So I'll use this example. The best mind game player that I've ever played was Justin Wong. I mean, this is a guy that I feel like I'm a pretty decent Urian player, and I've done pretty well against some top players and some really good chuns like Fubar Duck, who's gotten top 10 in Evo a couple times.
Right.
I've done fairly well against him. Lost, but never beaten as bad as I did to Wong. I mean, and the first round was I took 50% of his life, and then just using pokes and footsies, and all of a sudden it was like a paradigm shift. I mean, it was like he was really making me think that I was figuring him out when he was letting me think that. In reality, he was just deciphering my patterns, and it was just obliteration from there. I mean, he completely controlled every aspect of the game. He put me in positions where I had few options, and that he was going to punish me for the few options that I had. I mean, he had it down to the very frames of what could beat what. Never missed a Kara throw, never missed a parry in the super, never missed a hit confirm, and it was just efficient, like robotic.
I've heard that about Justin Wong before, sort of the robot guy. I've heard it about Daigo, too.
Oh, I can believe it. I think they're psychic. There's a possibility that they're telepathic, psychic, alien.
Perhaps from Mars. The last civilization on Mars just happened to have like this Street Fighter sort of game. All of the microwaves of those games have been implanted into the brains of Justin Wong and Daigo Umahara.
Yeah.
Why them? Why not me? Of course, they have to go back to Mars every 6 months and like pay homage or something. So probably not such a great gig, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just how we see it. They're probably digging it. It's like, oh, Mars, it's a vacation. Oh, yeah. But no, it is very interesting because there are so many aspects, I think, to mind games. Everything can be a mind game. I hear a lot of people talk about how it's behavioral conditioning with the patterns mostly. Trying to get them to use a pattern. And then that comes down to options. If you want someone to use the similar pattern, then you have to give them that option more often than anything else. So it's very interesting to think about, especially game specific, because it's like taking chess and then, okay, now we're going to have a second level, and then here's a ladder. Okay, now in another version of chess, we're going to have this extra yellow piece that must be captured in order to give the opponent a power-up. You know, there's so many different things in all the different games that a lot of it will transfer over. You still got some of the same basic moves, like knight to e4 or whatever in chess. So you've got your pokes and you've got footsies and you've got a lot of things that transfer over, and then you've got your game-specific things such as parrying and third strike, the focus attack in Street Fighter 4, and those specific things in the game engines and the way they've been programmed. As I've played more fighting games, I realized that, you know, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of these games, you really have to understand those things about the game and what makes that game unique and how to take advantage and give yourself the best option and give your opponent the worst option.
Right.
Of course, my worldview on fighting games is constantly changing, which is why I'm glad I get to talk to so many different people about their own personal experiences with fighting games and how they think about them, how they play them. I find it very, very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I love about it is just, you know, you're playing. I mean, it's like mind against mind, and you're playing a variety of styles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's when I go to a tourney, is sometimes like go to Seasons Beatings. You know, the Canadians are really good at third strike. When they come down and play, one of the best Urians I've ever seen is from there, and I'm seeing him do unblockables that I hadn't seen before, and it was like, wow, you know, I wouldn't have seen that unless I traveled and played at this tourney. You know, that's just, you know. So much of you know, leveling up in these games is playing variety.
Right. Well, since we've kind of opened it up just a little with the SB talk about community and traveling and tournaments, let's go ahead and jump right into that.
Okay.
What do you feel is your level of involvement with the community? You said earlier that you got on SRK mostly to just kind of meet players for the purpose of not talking online, but for the purpose of meeting in person.
Right.
Has that generally been the same, or have you found yourself more inclined sometimes to communicate just for the sake of communicating on SRK?
I find it's done a complete 180. I mean, I originally got on just to find out about events, just kind of a forum, see what was going on. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I've actually met a lot of friends through the community. I've met a lot of people, a lot of players, a lot of great experiences. And so a lot of times I get on there just to, you know, just to be involved with the community. It's opened up a lot of things for me that I enjoy doing. You know, now I like to travel to tourneys like, you know, 5-6 a year, and it's, you know, without SRK, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So,
is that mostly you found people who can like give you a ride, and people who know people who can give you a ride, and just being more involved with the community has given you this greater amount of options for getting to the tournaments?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I've just players from just, you know, hopped on the Indianapolis thread and say, hey, you know, you guys, I haven't met anyone yet. You guys want to meet up at GameWorks and play? And one of my buddies that I play with once a week now, and we both love Third Strike, and, you know, that's exactly what he did. He just hopped on the forums and said, hey, there's a, you know, that was actually the thread for like a year. It was like, there's a, you know, Third Strike machine at GameWorks, and you know, this guy started this thread, and it got all these people coming in, and, you know, and it was just like, we'd all meet up on Tuesdays, and, you know, we'd play, and then it you know, grew into local tourneys. We met Indy, who is now living in Japan, but, you know, he helped me throw Naptown Clash, and, you know, so it's a group effort, and, you know, a lot of people have came together to help one another, and it's all because of forums.
That is very cool. I mean, of course, you've got your kind of off-topic threads every once in a while, and the people who maybe take online communication a little too seriously.
Yeah, I try to. I do. Like, I'll get bored and I'll go into like general discussion, and then it's like, why am I still in here? I mean, there's some interesting stuff every once in a while, but then it's just like arguing or just talking about random stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's kind of like a group of really popular online people. Um, just kind of a lot of times ragging on new players, new people getting into it, and it's just kind of I don't know. I feel like the best aspects of this community are in the matchmaking threads.
Mm.
So, but definitely the strategy threads; those are amazing too. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I mean you'll have the coal that comes with the gold, or however you want to say it.
hmm
Um, but for the most part, I mean, if you know where to look, you're gonna find a lot of really good information and a lot of really good people.
right.
Very cool. So let's go back to a little bit of history. What was your first tournament,
My
fighting game
first.
wise?
Well, actually, the first tournament was a real small one. It was in Fort Wayne.
Hmm.
Those were the first group of guys that I met on the forums, and they invited me out. Really nice. One player, he had an arcade in his house. He had like 8 cabs, and
Wow.
he invited me out and just played to like 9 to like 3 in the morning, and they threw a little tourney about 12 people in Marvel and Third Strike, and I went like 2-2 or 3-2, and it was a good little experience. It was fun. But definitely it was that was very casual.
Hmm.
I hadn't played for a long time after that, and I decided that I wanted to go to Midwest Challenge.
Okay.
That was definitely a rude awakening because I hadn't been playing at all. I'd only been playing some of the locals in Indianapolis, and I was just kind of had this noob mentality that I could get away with gimmicks. Like, I
Hmm.
didn't even know a lot of the matchups in Third Strike yet. I mean, I was okay, but was not great by any means. And
Hmm.
went to Midwest Challenge, and Wong was there, Ortiz, some Canadian players. First player that I played there is Aneurysm X, and he's a top Dudley player, and he just obliterated me. And it was
Hmm.
just like, you just when you play someone really good, your mind just stops working.
Right.
And the guy was really nice, told me his name, asked me where I was from, and it's just. But then the interesting thing is I ended up playing him 2 years later, and I was able to take a match on him. So it was like somebody who I considered unbeatable gave me just so much interest in beating me that badly where I wanted to keep leveling up. And just
Hmm.
playing someone that good and losing to someone that good instantly leveled me up. It
Gotcha.
showed me really how a smart player plays.
Very cool. So how does a smart player play?
I think that they see the match in its entirety. I
Hmm.
mean, they see everything from they understand the character matchup. They understand, the options that both characters have, what they need to do to take advantage of it, and what to put you in the position where you fall victim to their mind games.
Hmm.
They top players are efficient. They don't make mistakes, and they pressure. They don't give you time to think. And I think that I've noticed that the more I've played, I've gotten to the point where I'm much more patient. If I take a little damage, I can just relax.
Hmm.
They might throw in a dragon punch, or they might try to do an anti-air with a dragon punch. Well, I'll assume that and then come in and parry and punish them when I get on the ground.
Hmm.
And a lot of players that aren't, they're still learning, or not high level players, they're not gonna know what to do because that's the only option that they're used to.
Hmm.
So the more you play and the more you better, the more options you develop, and the more possibilities you can have if something doesn't work out.
I gotcha. That makes sense. It goes back to mind games. It goes back to just trying to learn the games themselves.
Yeah.
Hmm. So you said you go to around 5 to 6 tournaments a year. Are
Yes.
those generally the same tournaments, or are you mixing and matching?
Um, I kind of mix and match. I go to SB every year. I've been to final round once. I've been to Midwest twice, but I do go to a lot of medium-sized tourneys, smaller
Hmm.
tourneys. Been to a couple. I've been to St. Louis I've been going a lot to tourneys in Ohio because I actually like some of the medium size more than
Hmm.
some of the majors because, you don't have 400 people around and, 20 setups.
Hmm.
You don't have to wait 40 minutes to play some casuals to prepare for a match.
Right.
Like take Arcade Legends, for example. I can go in there, run into some players I'm good friends with, and we can sit down and have 10 matches before the tournament even starts. So
I see.
that's something that I like about smaller tourneys. I do like the bigger tourneys because, you have players from around the country come, and that's where the best players are going to be
Right. Yeah.
and go where the money is.
Exactly. So, shall we see you at SB4 this year?
Oh yeah, I'm planning on going. I'll
Very
be
cool.
there.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it as my first big regional tournament to go to.
Oh, you'll like it. The venue's really nice.
I've heard.
I'm pretty curious to see how crowded it's going to get because it's
Mm.
been crowded every year I've gone. And with
Mm.
Daigo going to be there, I think you're going to have just even a lot of spectators coming
Right.
to see this guy. So, a lot of people are there. They're going to be fighting for the chance to play him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to get beat by the guy. If I get matched up with him in pools, I don't mind losing to him. I'm going to say I got to play one of the best players in the world.
That would be the jewel in my YouTube page is
There you
Daigo
go.
versus Osiren.
Yeah, it'll get like
Haha.
30,000 hits in 10 minutes.
It will. What great publicity, honestly.
Yeah. And what happens if you won? I mean, if I won, I
I
would like
know.
dive through a window or something. I'd be so happy.
Yeah, definitely. That would just be even to like take a round off of him would
Oh,
just be amazing.
yeah.
It would. I've got to admit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that would be something very cool. I think they're thinking of having some sort of Daigo challenge where people can play him.
You know what? I honestly, I saw that and it was like 5 versus 1. They're all going to try to take him off. But I really think Justin is the only one that could do it. And
Hmm.
I still think that Daigo was just a tiny step above him. And
Hmm.
I think Justin is the best player in the country in four.
Hmm.
But I think Daigo, I don't know. It's just they have a history where it seems like his mind games are just centimeters above his.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm gonna be betting on Daigo, even though I'd like to see Justin win. I plan on betting this year. So
That's where the smart money goes.
yeah, I mean, I had a friend that bet on not Yipes, but Justin last year, and he won like $700 betting on Justin, and Justin is, he's a professional. He's there to win. I mean, I'm
Mm,
sure he loves it, but he's there to make money too.
nice. So what are you playing in at SB?
Four and third strike. I've decided to not play Marvel. I did horribly at Naptown and Blaze Blue. I kind of struggle with Arc System games, and I don't think I've put in enough practice to really warrant entering it. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. So how are you preparing for Third Strike and 4?
I've been playing a little bit on 2DF. I don't know if that's a good thing because of the lag,
Hmm.
but I play with Justin. He goes by Mr. Gun Hates You on the forums, and he's one of the better players around, and me and him will just have like 6-7 hour sessions. So it's almost gotten to the point where we're like clones of one another in how we play. We play almost the exact same, but
Hmm.
he's a newer player. He's been playing, I don't know if that new, but maybe 2.5 years, and he kind of started playing when we met a lot more. So me and him will play, and we've gone. He went with me last year, so we're gonna try to, see how well we can do in third strike. I'm gonna kind of shoot for the top. I know that probably be the same 6 guys at the top, but you got to shoot for something.
Yeah, maybe you'll get to play Justin early on. That would be maybe that would be exciting.
Yeah, it'd be. I know I'd be fighting a long list of players to get out of the losers bracket, but that's I get to play more then, I guess. So
Hmm. Yeah, look at the silver lining.
yeah.
So when it comes to Third Strike, is it more of a practice of what you already know, or are you still actively trying to find new things?
Um.
Or new tricks, rather, because it seems that there's so much that's been discovered that there's very little left, but
Yeah.
maybe new ways to think about those things?
There's There's not much else really to discover in Third Strike. I do practice a lot of the same stuff, just get timing down, the pairing. One thing that does help is playing with a variety of characters because it helps you learn the matchup.
Hmm.
But I read this in an interview with Wong. He was saying that the new thing in the new evolution of Third Strike is mastering red pairing. Red
Hmm.
pairing is much more difficult than regular pairing because the frames, the timing is much less,
Hmm.
shorter. And I've been working on red pairing quite a bit more.
I asked somebody about red pairing before, so maybe you'll have the answer to this question.
Okay.
Is there anything special about red pairing other than the fact that it just happens later in a combo? Is there any other advantage that it gives you?
Well, it doesn't necessarily. What it is it's. I don't know if they explain this. It's from blocking. You're actually in block stun.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say it's a two-hit combo.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's short with Ken. Low short. You block the first one. You low red parry the second one, and because you're in block stun, it comes out as a red parry instead of a blue parry, and the timing is so much more strict that it's harder to do, but at the same time, I believe that when you red parry, you have a higher frame advantage than you do a regular parry to punish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more incentive to do red parries, but there's a higher chance of failure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very risky.
Now, do you know for a fact that you have higher frame advantage, or do you think that just is a result of the parry being, well, I mean, I guess if it was quicker, then that would mean higher frame advantage. But is that like an official thing that people kind of accept that it's just faster?
I believe it's been a while since I've read it, but I know that there is definitely an advantage over red pairing than regular parries because I think that it is maybe it's just that it is faster. It doesn't actually like maybe slow down their ability to attack again, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe that the it allows you to input your next command faster than it would be a red pair than a regular from a regular parry.
That would make sense.
It was something that they had put in third strike, but they didn't have in New Generation or Second Impact.
Right, I listened a long time ago to a Gutex podcast with
Hmm.
Combo Fiend, I think,
Yeah, Combo Fiend. Yeah.
and he was talking about how he didn't really like Third Strike that much, but that the addition of the red parry was definitely something that he found to be very cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's interesting. He doesn't like it that much because he's a very good third strike player. He's gotten believe second and third at SB the last 2 years. So
Hmm.
he places top three pretty consistently. But he's one of those players that's it's phenomenal. It's several games. So
Mm.
he's probably played a ton of it too.
So I mean, you focus on Third Strike, but speaking of these, have you ever seen the Dogface show? It was coming out
Yeah.
regularly for a while,
Yeah.
but he used the term multiplacial.
Multiplacial.
Yeah,
Concerning.
for players who will play multiple games and be
Uh,
very good at them, be at high
oh,
level play in multiple games.
I can see that.
And Combo Fiend was it was Combo Fiend and Ed Ma who were on that episode.
I saw that episode.
Yeah, and
Yeah, this is a pretty funny episode. Yeah,
they were the multiplacial players.
yeah. Ed Ma from my understanding, very strong at four and third strike. Whereas, in my opinion, the best third strike player in the country is Pyro Lee.
Hmm.
He retired for about a year, I believe, and then a year and a half, and then came back. But he only plays third strike, and that's what I read in an interview with him. Is that's all he plays. Which amazes me that some of these other guys can play all these games and still compete against the best player in the country like him. You
What
know,
do you think? What's the secret sauce that they must eat in order to do this sort of amazing thing? When we've already said that it takes so much time and you have to know so many different specific things.
yeah,
What do you think is their secret?
it's all it is. I mean, when it comes down to it, is it's experience in your location.
Hmm.
Pyro Lee, you know, he played at FFA. I mean, a very nice arcade. LA's got some amazing arcades, nice sit-down cabs. The arcades are frequented by a ton of people. They're popular. They have tournaments all the time. It's still lively over there. And then Justin, he's in Chinatown Fair, which is an amazing arcade. You're in New York City, a ton of people in comparison to, some small town in Indiana. You're going to have a vast amount of experience in comparison to, some of the Midwest players that are going to have to drive 4 and 5 hours to play very good players. And sometimes not even top players. These guys are, they're top players in, driving distance within 20 minutes of them. So, they're in a very good location. And I will say that it's not just the location, but they help each other level up. But at the same time, they're in an area that's still, where fighting games are still much more popular than it is in some smaller towns.
That makes sense. It's a shame, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, take Japan for example. It's just not by nature that they're so amazing at some of these games. It's that it's so popular out there, and guys, as soon as they get off work, their business jobs, they'll go in the arcade for 2-3 hours. It's still a popular pastime in Japan are arcades, and so they just have the competition. It's a culture that is still thriving after ours had died 10 years ago.
Yeah, the culture aspect, making it popular and getting people to come in is the key, the essential part to the scene. Without the people who enjoy the culture, there is no scene.
Right. And thankfully, we got 4. It's that game just, I mean, I've known people, even some close friends that, don't really play games, let alone fighting games. All of a sudden, it's just calling me up every other week wanting to play Street Fighter 4. These are guys that would never touch fighting games, and it's just something about it is just, it's highly accessible to the masses. And it's fairly deep. It's something you can get into. It's got a lot of variety. A lot of people love 3D graphics, so you're getting a lot of the younger players who are growing up in the new gaming generations where 3D to them stands for high quality. So it's just I think it's kind of more eye pleasing to a lot of the newer players.
Right. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I feel that we've got some more stuff to talk about, perhaps in another future podcast, especially about strategy and the Midwest itself and just the scene in general. I think we touched a little bit on that kind of stuff, but I'd love to talk to you some more about that.
Hey, sounds good.